Hello everyone, welcome back to another Babbling Irons video. Myself, Mike and Sloth today. It's the debate we said we wouldn't have, guys, until it actually happened around David Moyes and, whether he's going to stay, whether he's going to go. It's just been so boring, but it's now got to a point where it has to be spoken about. I think people want to hear our views on it. So, yeah, David Moyes' situation. He's obviously winless in 2024. We're slowly sliding down the table. Performances have regressed, and we're starting to get some of the things that he defends himself with in the public eye in these kind of press conferences, saying, you won't get a manager that wins more than me, which is definitely arguable for a man that's
Old
lost.
Statement when you're coming off the back of 8, a winless run of 8 and potentially go on longer, isn't it?
Exactly. So I think we just need to discuss the whole situation because we're currently sat here 18th of February recording this, still in Europe, still in a decent position in the league, 8th in the league, or maybe 9th after this Brighton and United game, or 10th. But we're still in a good spot. Do we act now, or my first question to both of you is: would you sack him now and bring in someone until the end of the season on a temporary basis and appoint someone a bit more long-term thinking in the summer? Or would you let David Moyes ride out his contract into this summer and then appoint someone new?
I think there's no argument that in the current form he is in, you could say he deserves the sack. It's an appalling run, whatever football club you're at. Yeah. If this was a manager who was in the bottom 3, people would be going, raising eyebrows at it. And I think that's what is very easy to hide behind, because we've overperformed at the first half of the season. It masks just how much of a capitulation there's been recently. And, as I've said many a times, it's not entirely down to Moyes, but a big part of it is, since he's not making any changes to the starting lineup, who have been so culpable.
Well, we look at the results so far this year. I mean, it's been really poor because we had such a good and strong December. We've got some really fantastic wins. We've obviously had AFCON disrupt a few things. We've obviously had the Paqueta and Bowen injuries, which Moyes rightly alluded to, but then also wrongly alluded to because he said it was going on longer than it has been. But it's just been a really bad turn of the year. I mean, we got a good draw against Brighton, but the performance was awful. But we could kind of get past that because it was a decent point. You then have the Bristol City saga where it's just turned downhill from there. You then go to Sheffield United and you don't win. You then don't beat Bournemouth at home. And then you're, scoreless in your last 3 games against United, Arsenal and Forest. And, just showing no sign of anything really from a defensive and offensive point of view.
And one goal in open play since the turn of year.
Well, look, also a quick caveat on the injury situation. The only reason Paqueta is as injured as he is because we rushed him back.
Yeah.
What are you doing starting your star player, and he's coming back from fitness. You're starting him in a match where full well they're going to be up for it.
Yeah.
Stupid decision making.
Yeah.
The only major worry for me about letting him go is that the person in charge of actually, paying someone to come in, not someone finding someone, but paying and getting it sorted in the end, is David Sullivan. And do I think we're going to get anyone better? I would be very, very hard pressed.
Yeah, I think as well. To kind of, I'm not sitting here saying I'm Moyes in, but if we'd got more signings and pushed for more stuff in January, it would have just had a different feel about it. I think it went very sour because of the actions of David Sullivan off the pitch and because of the actions of those above. Even Tim Stein, everyone was on the same page, even with that Osman deal. We were all on the same page. We all wanted to make it happen. We were constantly hearing in the media that we're going to sign a striker, a left wing and a centre mid this window. And, he got his man Phillips early, which was good for Moyes. He would have been happy with that. But then other than that, it just stopped. And we've seen that happen time and time and time again, regardless if a manager's doing well, if they're doing poorly. It's the same situation in January. We just don't go out and spend the money. We don't go out and recruit when we can push on from a position where we're doing really, really well. And I think that's just seeped into the team. I think, Phillips come in. He's been very, very poor. His performance has been very lackluster. He's obviously got the red card as well, so that has just made it more of a disaster. Then obviously the offset of Fornals and Benrahma without actually bringing anyone else in is an absolute joke to happen. As any manager would be frustrated by that. But then you have to make that right by we've still got good enough players to put in performances against the teams we haven't. Sheffield United away, we still had good enough players to win that game. Bournemouth at home, we still had good enough players to win that game. Forest away, we still had good enough players to win that game. So yes, we didn't make the recruitment, but it hasn't impacted this short-term period enough. Like we still should have had enough to get better results than we have done in the short term, which is why people are starting to question David Moyes as a long-term manager and even a short-term solution at the moment. So
it's also the decision making with the starting lineup. You can't concede 6 and then play exactly the same defense. It's mad. Like how anyone can defend that, I don't know.
You're just telling the players that your performance is irrelevant.
Yeah,
because you are going to play. If there's no repercussions and no reprisals, what incentive is there from players? There was also yes, there was more to it. We mentioned it last night, but him asking or saying that 4 or 5 to 6 or 4 or 5 wins is the target. 4 or 5 wins based on last season and our points now. Assuming no draws, no, etc. That would put us good enough, or the points would be good enough to put you 10 or 11th last season. So that means we've improved on last year. However,
it would put us on 51 points for the end of the season.
Yeah, but based on the levels that have been set, it shows a regression over the last 2 seasons of West Ham under David Moyes.
I do think that is partly a bit of a dig at the board. If he's saying, look, that's what we're aiming for, but that's the situation he's been given. So I'm making excuses for him. I don't think it's an excuse.
I think it's a devil's advocate point, and it's right because it's he's essentially making the assertion that I don't think I could probably win any more than maybe 5 games between now and then. That's my realistic target.
The sad thing is that he's built that rod for his own back with the lack of rotation. Yeah. As we said, rushing Paqueta back. It's very frustrating when you see clubs or just fans in general around who don't connect to West Ham going, what do these fans expect? Well, we don't expect us to be pushing for top 4. To be honest, we don't even expect us to be pushing for top 6 when you look at the quality that is around us. What we do expect is a bit of ambition and also a bit of consequence for poor performances. Zuma, yes, he's the captain, but Zuma and Aguerd are not consequence-free. No player should be consequence-free. Even Paqueta. If Paqueta had a really terrible game, I'd expect him to be dropped. It's a really frustrating build-up of decisions and also lack of action from the manager to try and impact the results. And that's why we're as frustrated as we are. And when he makes comments about slight digs at the fans, it really does. I think irks people.
I think as well, you're completely right in saying players should be dropped for poor performances, but as well as Moyes, the players have to take a lot of responsibility as well because their performances have been shocking. The likes of Bowen, which we've sat here and said an excellent start to the season. He's been very, very poor in 2024. Kudus as well has been pretty poor since he's come back, but again, he's playing out of position slightly and he's been at AFCON, so I'll give him a little bit more leeway. But that doesn't excuse the rest. Ward-Prowse has been poor. He's dropped off his performances. He's now starting to become the player that we said he might be on when we signed him in the summer. Souček's been constantly terrible. Our centre-backs, our defence has been an absolute shambles. It really has been absolutely ridiculous. And, look at that Forest goal, their first goal. You can say there's an element of, okay, well, the ball shouldn't have got there due to how we're set up. And, we're pretty naive, going into half time, 30 seconds left. But Aguerd still gets spun way too easily. Like, that's an individual player making a mistake in that moment. And it shouldn't, again, it's more than that because the performances over 90 minutes have been really, really poor, like diabolical this since 2024 started. So, you have to put the responsibility ultimately is with the manager in this situation. But I still want to say the players have been absolutely shocking this year.
Well, I mean, you look at the lack of rotation that we mentioned, but also the fact that Our free kicks yesterday, we didn't hit a single good free kick or set piece. And our set pieces were supposedly this magic wand. You know, they were supposedly a huge part of our game. And yet we were knocking 5-yard passes when we have James Ward-Prowse available to deliver crosses, hit it long into the area and cause problems. And we have the centre-backs to get onto the end of those. There's no excuses for not doing that. But that's come from somewhere. That's come from someone saying, oh, instead of actually having a set piece plan, what we're going to do is we're going to knock it and retain possession. Why? Why is that? Because in that situation, if you are grinding out results, if you're up against the cosh, you go, right, we have to capitalize on every single set piece we have. Why are we not doing that? And where has that come from?
So what do we do now? Because I want to kind of hear your guys' thoughts on it, because for me, I'm still tentative to sack Moyes. Like I think 2 months ago, the majority of the fan base was saying no one would kind of go argue against him getting a contract extension because he's been, the results speak for themselves. We also caveated that and said, yes, the results have been very good, but some of the performances haven't been. And I think we've maybe overperformed in terms of the points we were at for that stage of the season, but we still got some really fantastic wins. We went to Emirates and won. I thought we performed very well. Spurs, we didn't perform great, but we somehow managed to win. We beat United at home. We beat Wolves at home 3-0, who are flying at the moment. So we had some really, really good results. This is still the season where we were top after 4 games, having won our first 4 games. This is not the same team performance-wise than it was at the start of the season.
I was very vocal about the fact that he deserves a new contract, but I did say he needs to be backed. And we saw absolutely none of that in January. Look, he got Calvin Phillips on loan, but that's not backing a manager. That's not backing a manager going into the window.
This is why it goes deeper than
that's placating. That's all that is. Giving him one player that he wants. That's placating him.
But that's down again. This is where the problems at West Ham lie. It's with the owners. Yeah. It's with the ownership, and particularly Sullivan. It's very easy it's very easy for opposition fans to just disregard that and go, oh, well, you're complaining about your owner, but he spent money. It's how he spends the money and the lack of action, but it's also who he recruits and spends that money on. A lot of that is down to him. And look, Sullivan gets a say. Moyes gets a say, but Sullivan is the man who spends the money. He is the man who vetoes deals, and he should be the man coming out and saying, look, I messed up January. That's on me. He's not going to do that because he's going to get all his little grubby TalkSport friends to go, oh, David Moyes, oh, the situation, the fans at West Ham are angry, but he just won them a trophy. They should be happy. Yeah. No, it's more than that. This is a man who is constantly neglecting the football club, took us away from Upton Park and under-delivered on the stadium that he promised season ticket holders he would deliver, has under-delivered on the league positions because he said we were going to be pushing and fighting at the top of the table. Moyes has managed to do that in spite of that little goblin getting his mitts all over the transfer deals. Moyes has managed to do that, yet he still hasn't been back to the full extent that he should be, because technically we sold Rice in the summer, and that money, the money from Scamacca, was not put back into the squad. You can say we spent a lot of money, but it hides the fact that the year before, pretty much sedentary, and for many seasons before that, it was exactly the same thing. So Moyes has to take a lot of the blame for the lack of rotation, the lack of competition, and rushing players back from injury. But there is a bigger problem here, and he sits at the top of the club.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think just as a final point here, what would you guys do now? Because as I mentioned, we're still in Europe. We're still in a good spot. Like realistically, who are we going to appoint now that is, a long term? It's not going to be a long term appointment. It's going to be a short term caretaker thing. It really is. It's not going to be someone long term.
So that I take issue with, because Aston Villa chose mid-season to sack a manager, go get a long-term manager.
Yeah.
This idea that no one's available is rubbish. It's absolute rubbish. It's a fallacy.
Just won't do it. Sullivan just won't do it.
But regardless of the ifs, buts, and maybes, the simple truth is it's a fallacy and a ridiculous response, because people are just going, we're just going to do this. However, a proper, fully functioning football club only will make the decision to do a caretaker if they feel the current manager is untenable and the options that they have spoken to have actually expressed, I will sign, but I won't sign until the summer. That happened with Pellegrini. That's why we kept David Moyes last time. Pellegrini said, I'm not signing now, mid-season. I will sign in the summer. So we've done an under-the-table deal. No one knew about it. Few did. But let's be honest. An under-the-table deal was done with Pellegrini to sign the year Moyes was leaving. Moyes knew he was going, but he kept talking up in the press, there's a contract, might be a contract. So in that case, it's the only time where you don't then make that decision. However, you're also running yourself into this point of you've got a manager who knows he's not going to be there. You have a playing staff and actual staff that know he's not going to be there. So where's the incentive to push yourself up other than to try and get yourself a new job somewhere else? Moyes is going to get that anyway. Now, he won't get a top quality job. That's the simple truth. You know, people saying that you can't replace Moyes. Well, you can replace Moyes. That's just an absolute fallacy and a joke. We could have had Ange Postecoglou this year. We may have taken a backward step in terms of league position at first. However, we would have seen enough progression on the pitch that we would have been able to buy into this. Things will change, given the money, given the players. There is a project there. Under Moyes, it's difficult to say and see where this project is. When you're signing like Calvin Phillips, who's 28, 29. When you're signing James Ward-Prowse, despite how well he's done, 28, 29. When you're signing, you wanted to sign Maguire, 28, 29. Wanted to sign McTominay, about 26, 27. When you're signing players coming to the end of their careers or coming into the prime and some of them coming into the later end of their careers, it's difficult to say, well, there's a project there for the long term. It's a manager who's clearly he's working on this short-term idea himself.
I don't know about that because we've signed Kudus, we've signed Alvarez.
To a certain extent, I agree.
No, there are some players but the ones he wanted to sign.
I'm going to stick up for McTominay there. I'm going to say that I actually think he would have smashed it in our system. The way we play, I think McTominay would have done really well in the side, and he's been one of the standout players for Manchester United. As much as their Twitter army may not like that fact, but it's like Conor Gallagher at Chelsea. He has been one of the standouts for that side, but he goes unnoticed because he's not one of the fancy names like Caicedo. And as much as that makes me sound like, the English and Scottish Brexit hype is there, that's not how I mean it. He's not there. They are unsung players, and I think McTominay would absolutely smash it in our system. You look at the players that we did want. We know we wanted Gallagher in the summer as well, or Moyes wanted Gallagher. I think there's just a lot to be said for the lack of direction at the top of the club and the lack of investment at the top of the club. But on that front, I don't trust David Sullivan at all to go out and hire anyone of significant quality over Moyes.
This is the thing, right? So what would you do then? Because would you sack Moyes now and bring in someone else, or would you wait until the end of the season?
So for me, what's the point in waiting to the end of the season? If you know you're not going to give him the contract and things are not going well, why wait? All you're doing is prolonging and making it a drab thing. Make definitive decisions, right? Give the fans the respect and even the manager the respect of being definitive and strong in your decisions. If you don't think Moyes is the man to take you forward and our form's been this bad, just say, right, we're going to have to draw a line here. Our season has a potential to spiral out like it did under Big Sam. Again, why are you not learning from previous lessons? You allowed this to happen under Big Sam. Our season went from being 4th at come Christmas to being like, I think it was like 12th or whatever it was by the end of the year. Same could happen here. We could be 11th next week if we don't win a game. If we don't win enough results.
The thing is, though, we're still in Europe. So
it's by the by, mate. It doesn't matter. You're asking what I would do. This is what I would do, and I think again, it comes to definitive decisions. We could be out of Europe in the next 2 games. So again, you've got a manager who's not picking up wins, not picking up any results other than really negative ones. Really, we've got a team that looks disinterested. Do not have any kind of culpability for making mistakes and being removed, and they can just continue to play as they are with no ramifications. If it was me, I would be making a clear decision. If I don't think Moyes is the man, which I currently do not think he is, I'm saying I'm going to go all out to try and get a new manager. And now that new manager may have the same idea of Pellegrini. Look, I'm not interested in summer. Well, then it's like, I now need to pay the piper. If I want this manager, I need to do everything I can in which to strip him and pull him out of there. If it means flying out on a plane to him with a big old transit van, putting a bag over his head and pulling him out, that's what you need to do. You need to go and pay the club what they ask for. If the manager says, I'm not interested, you whack more money down. You say, I will give you this much as a wage. I'm going to give you these promises. This man, Tim Steidten, is literally going to be sitting there and doing your bidding to get any player or any profile player that you need. This is the budget you're going to have. And if you need a greater incentive, I'm going to give you a little bit extra. I want you, with this man, to remodel my football club. And I want you to be front and centre. And I'm going to give you the next year and a half in which to build. You have 6 months to kind of implement your plan in now as to the players that you expect to keep in the summer. Design and give me your list. So by come the 1st of July, when the window opens, we attack it with intent. And we go and get those players, and you can build and have a good pre-season. And over the next year, we will build that team. That, to me, is sensible. What we're currently doing is not sensible. Either back Moyes or get rid of Moyes. I think it's as simple as that. Because at the moment, putting him in limbo, the fans in limbo, is just going to add to greater discontent. And the fans will eventually turn to the board. But however, at the moment, the perfect figure to have a go at is David Moyes. And we need to see something definitive. We constantly talk about how bad the board are. Whether they make this decision right or wrong in terms of the long-term ideal, this new manager might come and might not go badly. But one thing we can't then say is, well, they didn't make a decision. This is just procrastination at this point. This is just like looking around the house and going, it really needs to be tidied up. I'll do it tomorrow. Tomorrow comes and do it. And it's basically the same thing. 6 months down the line, you're going, oh, it's got worse. And then you're like, I don't know what to do now. Yeah. I'm just going to leave it. I'm just going to leave it. I can't handle it. I can't handle it. It's too much of a mental strain. I'm going to leave it. Or you just go, oh, we're going to have to crack and do it now. And it's going to be painful. And you feel like you make the place much dirtier before it even gets better. And that's the situation we're in. We're in a case now where we're procrastinating over a decision.
But it's just whether or not we trust Sullivan to get.
This is why I'm not like 100% Moyes out at this current time, because yes, we're going through a bad spell. Completely agree with that. But it wasn't that long ago where we were getting some really good results. And a lot of people were saying, again, we sat on here and said it, we would not begrudge him of a contract, but we wouldn't do it now. We'd wait until the end.
We wouldn't begrudge him. I said he was earning his contract at the moment.
No. When me and Sloth did a video on it, we said we wouldn't begrudge him of the contract because, but we said we wouldn't give it to him now. We'd wait until the end of the season to see if it continues.
That hasn't happened. Exactly. But now we've seen, since the turn of the year, football is the way it is, and we said it last night. So, what have you done for me lately? Mentality.
Yeah, but he needed to be backed, and he wasn't. And that comes down to one man.
But again, this is the problem. At some point or another, someone will have to fall on the sword, and the ball ain't going to fall on the sword. So the only rational person to fall on it is the manager, rightly or wrongly. That's how it is. That's football.
Yeah,
the manager is always essentially that figure. And I said it last night. For me, Moyes is a brilliant floor raiser. And he's done that at West Ham. He's raised the floor of West Ham so well, created an incredible solid foundation, ensured that we've actually done our recruitment properly. Tim Steidten is also continuing that kind of floor raising in terms of our backroom staff, etc. Moyes bringing in Newman, fantastic choice. Moyes has made some brilliant steps along the way. However, I feel now we're on this precipice of, I'm not going to say next level, because that for me is nonsense, because he has taken us to a next level. Right, but again, it comes down to your own definition. We have gone to another level under Moyes. However, I don't think he's a man to kind of smash you through that ceiling in which to get the guy who can get you playing well, consistently playing well on the pitch, both aesthetically and in terms of results.
Yeah,
I don't think he's the man who can marry those two together. And we've seen a fair few missteps at times in the transfer window where we bought these big players that haven't worked, particularly at striker. And they've been, essentially, we've then had to bin them off for pittance, LS, Skamaka, just to name just two of them. You can even put Vlasic in there because he was talked about as a striker. That's almost £60 million or even £80 million worth of striking talent that we've had to then bin off for about 40, if that. So
no, let's, I think
Yeah, but
we need something fresh eyes on the team, fresh eyes.
Yeah, but it's getting those eyes in, and I think that's where Frankie and I are tied.
And that's why I think, based on what was said in The Athletic, which is that Tim Steidten is arguably being commissioned to have more of an operating control.
Yeah, but who is paying for that?
No, I know he's paying, but he didn't pay anything in January transfer window, so he has no excuses there being no money. Normally, it's I don't want to pay compensation because it costs.
He paid a lot for Phillips, didn't he?
Window. But however, we didn't pay anything in the transfer window, so that argument is null and void from him. He can't use that argument because it's null and void because he didn't spend anything.
I just know he won't. I just know he won't do it. That's why I'm not 100% pushing Moyes out of the door. I just know he won't.
I think this is when the rest of the board needs to step up. Like Kretinsky, we said it last night. Kretinsky now needs to step up and say, "Well, if you're not going to do it, if you're happy to, if you were willing to accept he needs to go,
it's not his decision, though. It's not his decision.
Hang on. Kretinsky can turn around with the rest of the board and say, "We believe Moyes needs to go." If you agree and your reservation is about paying compensation and paying for a new manager, we or I, as one of the board members, will facilitate that with the finances. You make the decision. You the one who makes the decision because you are the major shareholder, the controlling stakeholder. However, I will fund the movement of that compensation and the bringing in of that manager. We have heard in the past that Kretinsky has offered money towards the transfer window under certain conditions, which David Sullivan didn't want to meet because it meant giving up certain things. But this is a case where he could go to the board and say, if you're willing to fund it and you want him gone, I will back it and we'll go and get what Tim Steidten thinks.
Do I think there are better managers than David Moyes that we could get? Absolutely, 100%. Do I think that I trust us to do that now? No. Do I think Moyes deserves the time now from now to the end of the season with European football, from something he's built pretty much from scratch, from relegation zone in the last 3 years? Does he deserve to turn that round? Yes, he does. In my eyes, I think he's earned that respect from us to do that.
I know he's done. I know where we are in the current piece here, but last season, the same problem we talked about last season have come back up again this year. And last year we were adamant in our and very vocal in that, regardless of what happens in UEFA Conference League, arguably we should let him go.
Yeah,
exactly the same problems we talked about last year have resurfaced.
But it's been much better in the league this season.
Hang on. But Mike, this is also our results have been better.
This is also down to the lack of investment in the squad, which isn't his decision. That's not his fault.
No. I do concede.
But let's try and wrap it up soon because I think it's a very difficult conversation.
We'll go around in circles.
It is a difficult one.
We are,
but we don't at the same time.
But we're looking at a far harder competition to win this year. We're looking at a far harder competition to win this year. If we want to do anything in Europe, other than get a little pat on the back and say, well, you did try, then we're going to need a major turnaround. And I just don't trust anyone up to do that at the moment.
Yeah, but that's why I feel maybe a new change is needed, new eyes, because we talked about it yesterday. New eyes, we feel like new eyes need to be on the team because of the lack of ramifications for anything that seems to be happening in terms of performance. And maybe new eyes, and I don't mean caretakers. I don't think the caretaker thing is at any point, because I've seen people talk about let's get Noble and Nolan involved. Nolan's part of the coaching staff. It's not going to drastically change because they've get rid of Moyes.
Okay, so for you, Mike, you would sack him now if we could bring in someone that's a long term.
Yeah. We have to have a viable one there.
Fair enough. I think we're all in agreement on that.
Yeah, I think that's where we all agree. It's just
if we could go get like an Amarim or something like that from Sporting, then do it.
That's dream.
You've got to pay the £20 million price
exactly.
And then convince him. However, there is no reason from a financial point of view that they have in which to say Moyes can't go or we can't go for an Amarim. Yeah. Obviously, Amarim might have different opinions of where he wants to sign for us. That's obviously. However, there's no financial reason why we cannot sack David Moyes and go out and get our manager that we perceive to be the person going to be the man to take us forward over the next maybe 2-3 years or whatever. There's no financial reason.
Let's see what happens, because we've got, as we said, I think there was the difficult period of Arsenal and United as fixtures. We're past that now. We've gone into that 4 fixture. As you know, it always goes around. He's got 3 or 4 fixtures to save the job. We've lost to Forest. We've now got Brentford at home, then Everton away, then Burnley at home. I think he will be assessed on those those next 3 games as it normally is. I reckon he'll pick up another win in there, and it will save the job. And again, we can talk about
season. Can we go any cyclical?
Yeah, we could exactly. We can talk about whether that's right or wrong another time. But yeah, people wanted our thoughts. This is it. We're pretty much in the same position, going around in circles. But I think we're pretty much in agreement and aligned on. We could definitely raise the level of the football club with a new manager. And I think we're all in agreement that we probably need that now with Moyes being at the club nearly 4 or 5 years now. So it's just whether we can do it, whether we trust those above to do it and action it. That's where we're kind of maybe not. But yeah, let us know what you think in the comments. Leave a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. And until next time.
Go on, you eyes.